I'm going to talk about a very important topic, and that's OK Plateau. And this plateau comes in skill learning. And this was defined by a person who is a science writer in New York, and his name is Joshua Foer. So it happened like that Joshua went to cover a important event, and that is memory competition in New York. And there he met persons with extraordinary memory skill, and that he has mentioned in his book Moonwalk with Einstein, the art of memorizing and remembering everything. So there he found out that those person who has got extraordinary memory, and then he asked them, like, how do they remember so many things, like sometime up to 80 digits, or they can recite back the poem they just heard, and they can remember the back of cards, the reshuffle, and they can tell you exactly the sequence, and they can remember large number of figures or faces. So then he asked them, like, how they remember these things. So they told him that there's nothing extraordinary. Like, what they do deliberate practices. They do practice with their goal, putting harder and harder. So then Fouad thought that let me try this competition out of fun, because he became friendly with a few of the contestants. And then after 1.5 year later, he participated in the memory contest, and no surprises that he won this also. So then he defined this OK Plateau, because when he was preparing for this memory championship, so what he observed was like he used to learn various memory tricks, like some ancient techniques, some new techniques, some memory palaces or mnemonics, and then after rapidly learning those tricks, he used to plateau. Like he did not used to pay that much of attention, like in the beginning. So, like in 1960s, like Paul Fitts and Michael Posner, these are the two scientists who defined this phenomena of skill learning. So basically, it is in the three phases. The first phase is the cognitive phase or the intellectual phase, where when we are learning skill, we pay a lot of attention, and we become little bit proficient in the skill. After the cognitive or the intellectual phase comes the associative phase, in which we make few mistakes while performing skills, and we pay not much attention, but we get okay with it. And the third stage, which is the autonomous stage, which is where we have learned the skill, we perform, we are okay with it, people like it, like we have learned surgery, we have learned medical professions, and we treat patients, they get okay, and everybody is okay. So now we don't pay any extra attention, we don't pay any, we don't put challenges to ourselves that we should become better. Like from the very beginning of our childhood, we learn so many skills, and they become like embedded in our memory, and we just keep them in our mental file, and not bothering much. Like in a way, it is running on autonomous mode, or autopilot is okay also. Like we learn so many things from the childhood, like we run walking, talking, other stuff. So just remember, this is evolutionary aspect also, because we kind of spare our attentions toward bigger things, for more important stuff, rather than the routine mundane stuff. Like just imagine that we have to learn everything fresh every day, like walking, talking, brushing, remembering things, clothing. So that will be a horrendous task. So in a way that's okay, but it is not good for for our progress. So now, if you go further back, like in 1900, there was a person like Francis Galton, and he thought that after people make a good, I would say good at something, then they don't learn further. And this is something he defined as the Galton wall, but it is not true. It is a myth. So we will see later in the podcast that in 1954 there was some kind of psychological barrier that no human can run a mile in 4 minutes. But in the same year, like one medical student, Roger Bannister, he ran 4 miles in a minute, and it was a it was a feat never accomplished before, and it was all over the world, and everybody thought that this is one of the ultimate human feat in athletics. But let me tell you, after I think 1.5 months or 2 months later, one Australian guy also ran. He ran faster than the barrister, and then other one. So what once thought like it is impenetrable or it is impossible task become quite possible. Rather, it opened the floodgates for other athletes who are competing in that category. So the point I'm trying to make out, like when we come out of our comfort zone, when we challenge ourselves, challenge means with our like pushes us higher and higher, harder and harder. It is not like practice makes a man perfect. It does not. Yes, but practice, your deliberate practice is what Erickson has defined, like 10,000 hour practice. He has studies, like he's a professor from Florida, and he studies high performing artists, athletics, musicians, everyone who has made name themselves. So he says that at least one should practice 10,000 hours before one become proficient and become extraordinary in his skill. So now what we are suffering from in India is Plateau. Like we learn skill, we do our stuff, but we don't challenge ourselves. We don't reflect upon. And one important stuff which we need to, become better is immediate feedback. Like you thrive on feedback. If you don't get feedback, if you don't reflect upon your feedback, then, and if you don't watch your failure, like you don't study your failure. Like this is a thing in, figure skating where when the participant, when the candidates, they study their, most badass, what should I say, difficult movement. Like when they land in figure skating, this is very important and this is very difficult step of their figure skating. And then they study their, land and where they go wrong. So it is the study of your failure. When you study your failure, you become better. But I'm not saying we, but I have seen most of the time in my, this limited career that we don't put ourselves too harsh or too far in learning these things regarding deliberate practices. So let me give an example. It was a real thing which happened. I attend various conferences, workshop, and I'm a sim educator. So once I just chanced upon encounter a person who was supposed to teach difficult airway, and there he was supposed to teach surgical crack, which is my favorite skill. So just I talked to him, and then he told me that it is just the scalpel, bougie, and the tube. So I told him now it is the scalpel, finger, bougie, and the tube. So then he asked me from where this finger has come. So I told him that this is the latest recommendations and you must follow that. So he told me, no, I just do the dilatation. I told him that the finger is for dilatation of the incision for putting the crack tube, for the tracheostomy tube. Then he said, no, I dilate with the back of my handle, which, has been done, and people have studied that, and they have found out that if you dilate the crack hole with the back of your handle, then you can get stabbed, you can get injured. That is why the finger has come in. I told him that, but he was very adamant, he was very persistent. So that leads to another concept that we must learn, unlearn, and then relearn. So I was quite persistent, I was after him, and ultimately I could make him see through the point, what is the point in finger dilatation and what is the harm in if you dilate your surgical crack opening with the back of your handle, of the knife. So then ultimately he agreed. And we sometimes do things according to our own comfort. So we need to be, out of our comfort zone and challenge ourselves. Otherwise, we are not going to get much better. And other things is that I have seen many times, like people repeat their style, they don't compare what is happening in the international arena. So there was one study from Level 1 Trauma Center, they shared their experience for 15 years, maybe from 2009 to 2015. And they were pretty hopeful, optimistic, but there were no way they describe like how they are going to do better things. So if I can ask them, like if they compare what happened in the international area between 2009 and 2000, maybe 24, in those 15 years, then they could understand, they could fathom that how they can improve on their, those skills which they were sharing. So now, how can we improve? So only thing is that we should get genuine feedback. See, in our culture, usually I've seen, like people don't like to annoy, they don't like to give their honest opinion. We get feedback, but we get a ready-made feedback. We don't get immediate feedback. And once I asked a question to one of the presenter, then he was saying, of course he got annoyed, that meaningless or meaningful question. There's nothing like meaningful or meaningless question. That's why we are not innovating, we are not doing better. Because, like, let me tell you a story how the intraocular lens implant was invented by, it was Dr. Harold Ridley. So during Second World War, the pilots were getting injured by the window pane of the aircraft, and that inert plastic material that was going inside their eyes. So one day, and they used to take it out just like that, and one day that the plastic particle got inside the lens of a pilot, and he was discussing with the students, and one of the students asked him, so are you going to remove his lens? Then Professor Ridley said, what a stupid question. But he went back to his home, and then he thought that if I remove the lens and we prepare the lens of the same material, can that work? And that was the story. It worked. So this is how the IOL was invented. So I want to tell everyone, especially instructors, to reflect upon their own teaching, compare themselves with the international standard, with the maestro, the skill, the presentation, whatever they are doing. Otherwise, because we have positive feedback, we are not very good at receiving feedback. So my request is, like, please compare yourself with the international maestro, how they are doing things, and that's the only way forward. Okay, until unless we challenge ourselves, we get out of our comfort zone, we are not going to mitigate this OK Plateau syndrome. And OK Plateau syndrome is the main reason that we are not devising or defining any new algorithm or new guidelines. We just stick to the protocol which have been there in the books, and so much so that protocol, these algorithms are good, but they hinder your intuitive thinking also. So my request to all the instructor, the teacher who are in the teaching must come out their comfort zone, compare themselves, because every year I see that same kind of stuff they are repeating ad nauseam. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I want people to do better, to have some kind of intuitive thinking. That's my only concern. So I hope after listening to this podcast and maybe searching for other resources, you will come out with OK Plateau syndrome. With that, thanks for your time. Bye-bye.